Call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to the November 19th Post Falls City Council meeting. Rhiannon, please note that councilors are all present with the exception of Councilor Ziegler, who is excused tonight. Tonight we do have one proclamation. National Apprenticeship Week. Whereas National Apprenticeship Week is celebrating its 10th anniversary of raising awareness of the vital role of registered apprenticeships provided in creating opportunities by allowing apprentices to earn while they learn and preparing a pathway to good quality jobs and well-paying careers in Post Falls and across the nation. And whereas registered apprenticeship programs enable employers to develop and train their future workforce while offering career seekers affordable paths to secure high-paying jobs. And whereas Post Falls recognizes the role of registered apprenticeship in expanding opportunities in our workforce and providing a path for all qualified individuals, including women, youth, people of color, rural community residents, justice-involved individuals, and individuals with disabilities to become apprentices and contribute to America's industries. And whereas Post Falls recognizes that registered apprenticeship, a proven and industry-wide training model, is a key strategy to improving job quality and creating access to good-paying, family-sustaining jobs for all, starting with youth and young adults, while addressing some of our nation's pressing workforce challenges, such as rebuilding our country's infrastructures, addressing critical supply chain demands, supporting a clean energy workforce, modernizing our cybersecurity response, and responding to care economy issues. Now therefore, I, Ronald G. Jacobson, Mayor of the City of Post Falls, do hereby declare November 17th, 2024 through November 23rd, 2024 is National Apprenticeship Week in the City of Post Falls. Now we do have a couple of announcements. The City Council will hold a special meeting on Tuesday, November 26th at 5 p.m. in the City Hall basement conference room to select a replacement for seat 6, recently vacated by Councilor Shove. City Hall and City Business Office will be closed Thursday, November 28th and Friday, November 29th in observance of Thanksgiving. Police, fire, and rescue services for life-threatening or in-progress emergencies may be reached by dialing 911. The police department will be open for walk-in emergencies. And for water department emergencies, call 208-773-3517. Are there any amendments to the agenda tonight?
There are none tonight, sir.
Any declarations of conflict? Please present the consent calendar.
Item A is minutes from the November 5th, 2024 City Council meeting. Item B is accounts payable and hand check request report. Item C is the September cash and investment report. Item D is the postage machine purchase. Item E is Amendment 1 to the Teton Meadows Construction Improvement Agreement. And item F is the Point Expo and Baugh Final Subdivision Plat.
Any questions on consent?
I would move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Stigleader. Aye. Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We do have two public hearings tonight, and the first is the sanitary fee amendment. That'll open the public hearing.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The fee resolution that we just adopted, we were discussing the update to the fees with Post Falls Sanitation, and they have a few new services that we need to include in our fee resolution. The first service that they currently added is for a 6-yard front load dumpster for ADA compliance. The second service they offer is a 8-yard front load dumpster with ADA compliance. Both of those will be, the prices are on the, in the agenda from 1 time a week to up to 5 times a week. They have a 2-yard front load dumpster. They want to add a service for 6 days a week because there are some businesses that do have service every day. And there are 2 fee updates we need to correct. The 96-gallon cart for 2 times a week changed to $36.44. And there's the 96-gallon cart should be $12.86 for each additional pickup and not the $15.01 that's listed currently in the fee resolution. The ADA compliance dumpsters, those are something that it's a new service they want to provide, and so in order for them to do that, we'd have to have it in our fee schedule for them to charge that fee. So now is a good time to add that to it, so.
Any
That's
questions
all I
of
have on
Jason?
this.
Thank you.
That's it.
Anyone wishing to testify?
No.
Close the public hearing. Council.
I would move to approve the sanitary fee amendment as presented.
Second.
Motion seconds. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Stigleader. Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. And the next public hearing is the fiscal year 2025 budget amendment number 1, and I will open that public hearing.
So we didn't actually have the
Okay.
resolution.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the first budget amendment for fiscal year '25. There's going to be there's going to be 2 requests. One is for a vehicle replacement for the PD, and I'll go over that presentation here soon. And the second piece is going to be for the Camille Park update, the power boxes that we currently have. So, when we talk about the first item replaced, for the vehicle replacements, we don't currently include the police department. And so it's our recommendation to include the patrol vehicles in the fiscal year '25 vehicle replacement. What we are suggesting is to start replacing 6 patrol vehicles, and that amount is going to be $492,000, sorry. The funding will be coming from the vehicle replacement fund. Currently, as it is, we set money aside for replacement vehicles, but the PD was never involved in that. What they currently have is, we purchase 3 vehicles, new vehicles for them every year, but those are generally for new positions that they have, and so they do have a need for it in their aging fleet. Current illustration of their vehicles they have. Like I said, currently we purchase 3 new vehicles a year, but those are generally for the new positions they have. Replacing existing vehicles does provide financial certainty, and it does not provide for necessary replacements over time when we do buy the 3 new cars every year. The overall replacement program, we do allocate funds every year. We are looking at the patrol vehicles have an expected life of 7 years, and the K-9 units have an expected life of 5 years. Those get ran a little harder. Just having the K-9 unit. And so what my recommendation is, we're going by adding the police department to the fleet vehicle replacement. It's the chief and John Beecham got together, and so the money that we're looking for vehicle replacement is $492,000. I don't know, I'm having a hang up with that today. And like I said, that doesn't do anything with the current tax dollars or anything. It is money that we have currently set aside from unspent funds from at the end of each year, that we try to have some replacement dollars for those, and that's where that money is coming from.
So to be clear on this one, if we accept this, then we're not going to be getting separate requests from the police department every year for new vehicles, right? This replaces that?
They'll do the new vehicles, but it's any of the aging vehicles. We currently don't have a replacement program for that portion of it. So every year what we do is we've been buying 3 new vehicles, and generally what those have been used for are new patrol officers. So if you have an officer that's had their car for 5 years, we don't have a current program to replace those. They've been using the new vehicles that were purchased to replace those aged out vehicles.
And I know right now we're expanding the head count at the police department, which is greatly needed. But if there are years that the head count's not expanded, then would we just go with the vehicle replacement fee and not get requests for new vehicles because we're not expanding the head count?
I'll have to defer to John for that one if you have.
Well, I mean, I can speak to that one. So when we only add new vehicles to the fleet when we add new officers,
Okay.
we purchase some of the 3 vehicles on a typical year as a replacement vehicle.
That's
So
what I
some-
thought, okay.
Yeah. And
Thank you.
this would replace that. So you would no longer get the replacement vehicles as a new budget request. You would only get, if we're adding an officer, we're going to add his equipment and his car.
That answers my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shelley.
So can I confirm then the police department has not been, like, year over year putting into a replacement fund like other departments have been?
Well, the money's been coming from the general fund. That's why we thought it'd be a good idea to include the police department in the vehicle replacement fund, because those monies are coming over from the general fund, and since the PD is part of the general fund, it did make sense to include the PD in that program.
So the replacement account
Uh-huh.
has been funded based on depreciation of all vehicles.
Including the police
And
department?
including the police department, but they have not been using the program
Okay.
that we have for replacement. So we're adding them to that program.
Correct. That's it, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Shelley. And it does make sense since we do have the funding available to include them, so that was something I wanted to go over. And by purchasing the vehicles current versus waiting, there'll be fewer costs associated with those vehicles. That's all I have on the vehicles. The next portion of it is replacing the power pedestals at the Chameleon Park. Staff recommends addressing the electrical concerns. Thorco submitted the lowest bid of $71,195, and those are generally used during Post Falls Festival when we have vendors that need to use electricity at their plug-ins. And again, that these monies are coming from a different fund. It's the Special Events Fund, which is not affected with the general fund. The general fund doesn't contribute directly to the special events, and the Special Events Fund can only be used on special events. So we have those designated monies to fund this project. Oh, and that's all I have.
So those funds are available right now.
They're available right now, yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions, Jason? Anyone wishing to testify?
No.
Close the public hearing.
I would move to approve the fiscal year 2025 budget amendment number 1.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Malloy.
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Stigleader.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Jason. Next item tonight is unfinished business. We have a vacation ordinance for a portion of right-of-way at the 17th Avenue and Catherine Street, VAC 24-1.
This was the ordinance that we pulled from the last meeting that needed some edits and changes, so it's just back on for adoption.
I move to place the ordinance, vacation ordinance for a portion of right-of-way at 17th Avenue and Catherine Street, number VAC-24-1, on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second. Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Westland.
Aye.
Stigleader.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Harrington.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, Kootenai County, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for vacation of a portion of rights-of-way consisting of approximately .034 acres of West 17th Avenue and North Catherine Street, bordering Lot 5, Block 4 of Roberts First Edition, to Post Falls on the south and the west respectively, lying within the northwest quarter of Section 34, Township 51 North, Range 5 West, Boise Meridian, City of Post Falls, Kootenai County, Idaho, providing for severability, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.
I move to approve vacation ordinance for a portion of right-of-way at 17th Avenue and Catherine Street, number VAC-24-1, and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Westland.
Aye.
Stigleader.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next up is new business. We have 4 items. The first is the ordinance on planning and zoning commission members and updating electrical code.
Yeah, this is just a housekeeping ordinance. Basically cleans up our code on planning commission members, reducing it from 8 to 7. It was an older increase that was done for the Impact Fee Advisory Committee. And then the second amendment is just updating the year for the electrical code. Both of these, we just combine them into a single ordinance for ease, and they'll take effect in January.
You need a motion to approve and then bring back the ordinance?
This one, because it's a relatively simple housekeeping ordinance, we'd like to
approve it.
just adopt it
Okay.
right now.
Any questions, Field? Entertain a motion.
I move to place the ordinance on Planning and Zoning Commission members and updating electrical code on its first and only reading by title only while under suspension of the rules.
Second. Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Westland.
Aye.
Stigler.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, Kootenai County, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for the amendment of Post Falls Municipal Code Section 2.12.010 to establish the number of Planning and Zoning Commission members at 7, providing for the amendment of Post Falls Municipal Code Section 15.04.080 to update references to the National Electrical Code, providing that remaining sections of Post Falls City Code shall remain in effect, providing for severability, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect on January 1st, 2025, after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.
I move to approve the ordinance on Planning and Zoning Commission members and updating electrical code references, and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Westland.
Aye.
Stigler.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item up is ordinance prohibiting disruption or obstruction of city government operations and offices.
So this one is just on for consideration and feedback. It's kind of a rewrite of some existing code that we have as far as interfering with officers, and I think there was a question as to what constitutes an officer of the city, whether or not that's every city employee or just police officers. And so we looked at that and drafted this amendment to sort of cover all city employees so that if somebody is lying down in front of a snowplow, that we can have the police come out and have them cited for interference with a city officer. We've also added some language, just sort of beefing up the areas of city, like city buildings and stuff like that. And that's similar to we have a trespass policy for city facilities, but this allows a little bit of criminal enforcement as well. So
Is that an ordinance that we need to pass tonight, or is it?
this one is just on. This will come back at a future meeting if you approve.
Any questions for Field?
I'm curious, so in the, like, draft, it talked about there being the previous section, then was it 920? 9820? Was that also a misdemeanor, what was listed in that section of the ordinance? I couldn't find it.
Yes, so this doesn't change the penalty section of.
Okay.
So our general penalty statute, if something isn't specifically laid out, our general penalty is a misdemeanor.
Misdemeanor. And then was there like a more specific use case for expanding this section? I appreciate that wanting to protect the city staff and our officers, but the language seems extremely expanded and quite vague as to what constitutes obstruction, interruption, prevention, hindering the peaceful process or performance, resist, delay, or harassment or threat of harassment. It just, I guess in my head I'm thinking, like, if a contractor from the city comes in to tear up like concrete on someone's driveway in their house and they maybe don't know why or don't know what's going on and they stand on that concrete, and to stop that person from doing that, like, I feel like that scenario is a simple one but could technically fall under this ordinance, and it's an automatic misdemeanor. I read the original ordinance and it seemed reasonable to me, but this one seems much expanded.
And I think, so our city prosecutor reviewed the language, and I think she tied it back toward the state code on interfering with officers.
Okay.
So
if there's already a
that's where it
state
came.
code, do we need it to be so expanded in our city code?
So I do think, I don't know that the state code, I don't know.
Sorry.
ran this by our city prosecutor.
Okay,
I don't know where the language necessarily is borrowed from.
gotcha.
But I do know that there has been issues with these sort of interactions, and so the police department has been asking for a little bit more guidance than what was currently in our code.
Okay. I mean, we've talked about leaving basketball hoops in the street during snowplow season. I mean, would that also fall under this? I mean, it's an interruption of, and so that would be a misdemeanor? Like,
No, and the basketball hoops, I don't know what the penalty is there, but the basketball hoops in the public right-of-way is a separate state code where you are obstructing a public way, but I'm not sure what the penalty is.
right,
on there.
but
I might-
if I may, trespassing is also a separate like violation, and we're adding more verbiage in here to, just like you said, to prosecute trespassing, which is already its own crime.
Mayor and Council, Mark Brownell, Captain of the Police Department. So to your first question about the state code covers police officers.
Okay.
It doesn't have anything to do with city officials or city workers, and that's where, and this, what I read it this afternoon, is incorporating, interfering with, like Mr. Field said, with a snowplow driver. We've had incidents where they were threatened, and we actually had to follow the snowplows down the street to keep them safe. And so that would give us some teeth to actually charge that person with a misdemeanor for interfering with the lawful conduct of city employees, plowing streets.
Is it not already a crime to threaten or harass a person even if they're not working in the
So it
capacity
depends
of
on
the
the threat.
city?
And so, Idaho code is very cognizant of free speech, and
Uh-huh.
so just because the threat is made, it has to be coupled with an apparent ability to carry out that threat.
Okay.
And so just the threat alone is not criminal.
But it would be if we pass this ordinance.
If it interferes with the lawful work of a city employee, yes.
So would yelling a threat to a snowplow worker without actually being in front of the snowplow fall under this ordinance?
And so the way I interpret it is only if it impedes the work. And so if you're just yelling threats, that's not going to necessarily impede the work. If you're standing in front of the road or laying down in front of a snowplow, that would impede the work. To the basketball hoops, if someone lined up all the basketball hoops in an effort to impede the snowplow drivers, then yes, that would fit under this code.
Okay, but if they lined them up, then presumably that would also like block a roadway, which would already be a criminal act in some capacity.
And I believe also a city code violation as well.
Right, and I'm so sorry, I don't mean to be difficult about this, but when I read it, it's just much expanded, and I appreciate that we're wanting to better define officer, but I think that maybe that would be the only verbiage necessary, and that we didn't have to expand the sentence. I mean, if I may, it says intentionally resist, delay, obstruct, interrupt, prevent, or hinder the peaceful process or performance of any governmental function or duty by any elected or appointed officer, employee, or agent of the city in any manner, including by harassment, abuse, or using or threatening to use violence, force, or physical interference or obstacle. If we really just want to clarify what a city officer is, it would be my request, and I know that I'm just one on council, that that be the language that we change and that we not expand the sentence as thus.
Yeah, and I think the request was to add more clarity to what constitutes the interference.
I
Was
think
that
we just,
information provided by a prosecutor?
Yeah.
I don't know that we added clarity. I think we just added a lot more words to make it mean a lot more activities that potentially are already punishable, like are already criminal acts. So anyway, that's my feelings about it. I'm so sorry. I will let the other council members give their opinions.
Harassment does strike me as vague. There's a lot of cases where I could see some form of a peaceful protest being construed as harassment. I think that's one that can be misused. I had a question about the disruption of government offices. Is there a specific incident that prompted adding that section?
I'm not I'm not sure that there was a specific incident that prompted that. I think we were just thinking of the sort of overall interference, both of the person and the offices as a whole.
And is there any benefit to having this as opposed to just trespassing someone?
I think there is. I think it gives a bit more enforcement capability to remove someone and charge them under multiple sections if need be.
And I can speak to the fact it seems it's very difficult to meet all the criteria to trespass somebody with a public building. So we have ran into that. I'm wondering, Field, if maybe we should get back together with, I know this came from the chief originally, and talk about the different instances that prompted some of this language so we can bring back better answers as to why some of the language is included, and also evaluate
Yeah.
the language itself.
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would move to table the ordinance prohibiting disruption or obstruction of city government operations and offices to a future meeting to get greater clarity.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Stigleader.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Next up, removing items from asset inventory.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jason Faulkner, Finance Director. The current practice of when, excuse me, the Finance Department is in charge of keeping track of the city's assets, and when the city purchases assets, we have a process where if it's over $5,000, we track it as a capital item. If it's under $5,000, we consider that a small and attractive item. And sometimes we tag those and sometimes we don't. The current practice is if they request a tag, we will tag it just to track it. Some municipalities track every item, and that's it's a little much, but sometimes they do that. Also, when they dispose of an item, they're supposed to contact my office and let us know that they want to dispose of that item. So what I have in the council packet is I have instructed staff to take a deeper dive in the fixed assets of what we have and contact the departments and go through the list. If we don't have it on the list, remove it from the list. And so there's a lot, but it was over a longer period of time. And we're going to stay on top of this more often instead of just every so often. Look at it probably every year. We'll look at to see, do we still have these assets, and bring them to council and let them know that we need to dispose of those. And so that's what I brought before council for approval.
I don't think you're ever going to get a business that has a extremely accurate system of tracking assets, just
Right.
because of the different size and the expenses, et cetera. So
Sure.
I think anything we can do to facilitate bringing records current,
Yeah.
I think that's helpful. But that's
Okay.
just me.
Thank you. Yeah.
And I would agree that if we treat this kind of like an annual inventory,
Yeah.
it'd be a lot more predictable and smaller impact than doing it once every 10 years or whatever,
Yeah.
however long it's been. since we've-
Absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah. I was a little shocked when we went through when staff reported back what we actually don't have on the inventory list. The departments know they're supposed to contact us, but sometimes if it's a smaller item, they don't think that to notify us, they just dispose of it properly and move on and buy a new one. Yeah.
Yeah, I deal with inventory management systems. I build them for small businesses all the time. I'm very familiar with this problem. Things are
Okay.
always going to get out of sync with the list of what you think you have.
Right.
And you've always got to go through and update it.
Yeah. And that's what we did here was go through the list. Yeah.
And over how long was this?
Well, it hasn't been done since I have been the finance director, and that's probably been about 10 years. So,
I guess maybe I'm on the other end of it. I'm just a regular worker bee who has been assigned many of these items before to work remotely.
Sure.
And they're tagged and have my name on them, and when I leave that position, they have to be returned. So I was actually a little bit shocked. I just added up the words that I understood on this list.
yeah.
35 computers, 23 iPads, 19 mobile computers, which I think were from the police department. My understanding is those are in a car.
And sometimes too, if the item was taken to council for approval and some of those didn't get removed from the system, even though they got council approval, instead of going back through and digging through the council minutes, I said, just add it to the list and we'll just treat it as a new one. So it could have possibly been in prior council packets that they were authorized to dispose of, just they weren't removed from the system at that time.
One
I
body
don't know.
cam. I don't know either. I appreciate the sentiment of moving the business forward and just keeping it going, but maybe it's the mom in me that's like, well, where are your snow gloves,
Sure.
right? Like, I do feel like it's a decent amount of stuff that was
It's a lot of
purchased
stuff.
with taxpayer dollars.
It's a lot of stuff.
And potentially were replaced, and now we can't find them. So I'd say I'm in favor of passing this for you and moving it along, but I would really request that either from the department heads, like that this be a priority to keep track of these things. I know that maybe in the grand scheme of things, these aren't big purchases for departments
add
or
up
for
over time,
cities.
that's for sure.
But I mean, even in my household, like at 23 iPads, like that's a fair chunk of change. So that's my opinion about this item.
I
So
agree
we are.
with you.
Oh, sorry.
I say I agree with you, which is why I think this needs to be kept up on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Because now some of this stuff is so long gone that there's no way we're gonna go back and
Yeah.
say what happened to it. you know?
True.
So staff is looking at a policy that Rathdrum has discussed, it's surplusing of equipment policy. And Warren is reviewing that currently, and we're looking at updating what finance does and what is tagged and not tagged, what's considered small and attractive, which is, I always find a funny terminology. But we will be bringing back a policy for council to review on how we will be tracking of assets so that there is a better system in place to ensure this doesn't occur. Some of these, like some of those iPads, if I went back through council meetings, they would have been likely approved because IT does a pretty decent job on the city hall network side of sending the stuff to council for disposal. We only during really during COVID did we allow anyone to work from home, and those computers were returned at the end of COVID, so they were checkout computers. So this is not any part of that.
I suppose that was, and I don't see Mr. Kirby here tonight, but most of these are like items of technology
Yes.
that connect into the city network, and I would be curious what sort of cybersecurity risk that poses. I think there's like a list of 18 best practice standards that should be followed, and item number 1 is having an appropriate inventory of all of your like computers and items, and it seems as though maybe we don't meet that first item, so.
So we do have an inventory of all of our items. If you would like to see a copy of that,
Right, but
we have it.
But we don't know where a bunch of them are.
No. So IT has an inventory list.
Uh-huh.
It did not match with what finance had. Finance had this list that is completely separate. And
Okay.
so that's, IT and finance got together.
That's
and
true. That's correct.
So the inventory list that IT is maintaining of what is current and usable items is up to date and accurate.
Right, and that's what we checked it with, and like I said, it could have been, instead of going back through, look at the council records before, I just said add it to the list, because it didn't match with what IT had. Our records in finance didn't match with IT, what they said we had as an inventory list for for computers.
Okay, but then IT should be able to say where they went if they're the ones that are keeping the accurate inventory list, right? I mean, I didn't mean to open this particular can of worms, but if you're telling me now that IT has an accurate list of all of our items, then they should be able to say where the ones that are on the list that was in the packet that we can't
IT
find.
has a current list.
A current
of-
list.
So the stuff from 2009, 2006 that they don't have on their list,
Uh-huh,
that wouldn't be there, so.
but they had it on their list at some point when it was.
So again, they
Was.
were not necessarily keeping an inventory list back in 2006.
When did their inventory list start then?
I will have to find out from
Okay,
them.
all right, cool,
I
thank
just
you.
know that when we went with Jason and he was matching, they have an inventory list of everything currently.
I guess my point is to say that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 iPads right here in a row at one point were part of the city and connected to the network, and now we don't know where they are. And so that's sort of the point that I'm making,
So
whether
our-
IT knows about them or not.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a longer discussion. IT doesn't, we don't allow VPNs on everything, so not every item that is on this list was ever allowed to connect with the network.
Okay, but iPads work, because otherwise they don't work, right? I mean, I don't mean to get into the tit for tat with you, but I'm just saying
So
that
my iPad doesn't connect with the network.
your iPad doesn't have any internet at all.
It has, yes, it has internet.
Okay.
It has its own cellular service.
Okay, and has access to certain pieces of city information.
Through my sign-on, yes, but
Yeah.
not through the iPad itself.
Okay, well, anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate the information. It'll be interesting to see this go forward.
Okay.
You need a motion to approve this?
I do, yes. Thank you.
I move to approve removing items from asset inventory as presented in the packet.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Walker.
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Westland.
Aye.
Stigleader.
Aye.
Last item is grant application resolution agreement. Mr. Paulus.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council, Robert Paulus, City Engineer. Tonight, staff is requesting, after your consideration, the adoption of a resolution authorizing the federal aid application under the state's Transportation Block Grant Program for a expansion of Prairie Avenue to 5 lanes between Greensferry Road and Cecil Road. The last time there was a request under this block grant program was in 2019. The city of Post Falls was successful in a joint grant application with Post Falls Highway District for the expansion of Prairie Avenue from Meyer Road to State Highway 41. The reason I bring that up is one of the things with that grant that we're working with Post Falls Highway District on is that it takes about 5 to 6 years to develop a project. That project that's being worked on with Post Falls Highway District on Prairie Avenue could have been and would have been much more beneficial to the public if it had been done a couple years ago when Highway 41 was completed. So with this block grant application on Prairie Avenue, we're trying to think a little bit more strategically in our application. Where do we think we're going to have a needed project in 2031, 2030 timeframe? Taking a little bit of a closer look at the highway or the Prairie corridor, the project that we're requesting to do the grant on is on the blue to the left on the screen. Showing the entire area, as I just mentioned, you have the Prairie Avenue project, which is scheduled for construction in 2028, and that goes from Meyer to Highway 41, and we've had developers do about a quarter of the work of that project within the last couple years. Quite recently, in 2024, KMPO was able to get a carbon grant for the Post Falls Highway District to put in a underpass for the Prairie Trail. That's to be constructed next year. And then the City of Post Falls has several impact fee projects that we are anticipating in the section of Greensferry Road between Highway 41 and Cecil. They're called out to be constructed around the year 2030, or at least that they are going to be needed by the year 2030. That includes widening Prairie Avenue from Highway 41 up to Cecil Road. Also calls for a roundabout or traffic signal to be looked at Charleville Road. Similar issue at Cecil Road. So what we're looking at in particular is the section of Prairie Avenue between Cecil and Greensferry. We currently have a traffic signal at Greensferry and Prairie that was installed in 2019 and 2020 by the Post Falls Highway District. We inherited that when we annexed the land in that area. Unfortunately, when that traffic signal went in, it was sized only for the road as it existed at that time in place. It was funded with safety improvement dollars, which did not allow them to put in a traffic signal that could handle capacity needs. So we need to widen that intersection and put in basically a brand new traffic signal because the existing ones poles are not big enough or strong enough. We would be widening Prairie Avenue to 5 lanes. We'd be putting in a 3/4 turn restriction at the halfway point between Charleville and Greensferry Road. This is in conformance with the critical arterial corridor policy, which Prairie Avenue falls under. And then we'd also be putting in any missing sidewalk, curb, gutter, and roadway illumination. There is one parcel on this property that we would need to acquire rights-of-way from, and that's shown in the red. In terms of cost, the total estimated cost of this project in today's dollars is about $4.4 million. Of that, the state grant would be about 93%, and the remaining 7% would be city match at $308,000. We are showing that there would be a city staff in-kind match of $25,000. That's what we estimate as our time to manage the project through development and construction. Those costs are not reimbursable from this type of grant. It is estimated that with increases in costs, that by the year 2031, this grant would be worth $5.3 million, and the state does increase the value of the federal funding over each year by a factor that they determine. I stand for any questions that you might have on this project.
So you're asking for authorization to move forward with the grant request?
For the adoption of the resolution which authorizes the application, yes, Your Honor.
Any questions?
And this makes sense to me to get as much funding as we can for that, because the more east-west connectivity we can get north of 90, the more pressure we take off the rest of the city streets.
I would move to approve the grant application resolution and agreement regarding Prairie Avenue widening Greensferry to Cecil.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Malloy,
Aye.
Westland,
Aye.
Stigleader,
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Rob. Next item up tonight is citizens' issues, and this section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council. Seeing none, administrative staff reports. First, cemetery update.
See if we can do this. Perfect. Mayor and council, my name's Kevin Palmer. I've been cemetery sexton at Evergreen Cemetery for the last 12 years. City employee for the last 20 up there. So I've basically been there for going on 20 years in December, I guess. Staff report, they've asked me to do something a little bit different. That's why I'm up here and not Dave. So we'll see how this goes. You give me a little bit of slack. I'm not a presentation and PowerPoint guy. I'm a dirt and concrete guy. So we'll just see how everything goes from here. We're going to do something a little different. We're going to do some history of the cemetery. A lot of people don't know the land was donated by Frederick Post in 1879. Treaty Rock was signed in 1871. First burial was taken in 1881, so just 10 years after we acquired the land, our cemetery's been here. So it's probably the one set of land that the city has that ties us back to our history. 1889 or 1894, the fire came through and destroyed a lot of the records and the headstones that were out there. People call up a lot for genealogy. Don't have a lot before that time. And there's actually quite a few stones up there that are from before that time. 1917, it was taken over by the city of Post Falls. We still have deeds that register as the village of Post Falls from back then. So it's a big tie back to our community. The generations that have been here, everybody's got somebody up there. If not, unfortunately, they probably will. So the Young House across the street was built in 1900, so 20 years after our first burial. The Young House, which is across the street, now Republic, so it's historically the oldest standing building in Post Falls right now.
My house was built in 1900.
Second oldest, depends on the
Or-
month.
or it
Let's see
matches.
the month it was completed, and then
matches.
we'll do registers. So, Chape and Drug, which is right here on the corner where the museum at, that was completed in 1920. So a full generation after the cemetery started is where our museum's housed across the corner. Cemetery ties a lot of people back to this place, and I've been there 20 years. I take it kind of personal about what happens up there and what we do. Some of the stuff that we do up there, well, first, cemetery is an 18-acre site that's up on North Spokane Street, corner of Spokane Street and Pole Line. Several expansions have taken place, probably 4 or 5 expansions in the last 15 years, so we got about 13 and a half that are developed. The remaining 4.5 acres available for future development if we choose to. We just did a current expansion, probably another 5 to 6 years. We'll have to look at doing, a next one that comes down out of those 3. But that does give us a possible of 2,800 grave sites. We've been doing about 100 a year, so it's pretty easy math to figure out how long we're sustainable up there. We will have to start looking at alternative stuff. We're about 60-40 burial cremation right now, so we'll have to start looking for different ways to expand niches, different types of cremation, scattering gardens, ossuaries, which is, an ossuary is basically a big pipe that you drill down in the ground and you put granite plates up above, and you just put the ashes in the ground and then designate a plate for each one of those ashes that go in there. Currently over 4,000 people are buried up there, about 900 veterans all the way back from the Civil War. We do have Civil War Medal of Honor winners that are buried up there. You got Post is up there, Link is up there. Some of their names you might, Schneidmillers are there. We also have Marge Simpson, if you want to go digging real deep. We got a Fred E. Krueger, if you just want to do different stuff. So cemeteries are kind of my thing. We always got to stop and look at the cemetery wherever we go. So 1,400 lots are still in reserve. Lots that are in reserve of ones that have been purchased and still awaiting burial. So we do have opening, closing costs, headstone costs, everything that would still associate with that $1,400 or that 1,400 lots in the future. Some of the stuff that we do up there, a lot of people think the cemetery, we mow grass and dig holes. And unfortunately, we do a lot more than that. Mowing, irrigation, fertilization, weed control, that's all everything that happens inside the cemetery. We added the road frontage this year. Road frontage added 498 sprinkler heads down the outside of my fence. So it does take about 2 guys about 4 hours a week now to mow and address those heads. Takes a day and a half for all 3 of us just to mow the interior of the cemetery, and that's if there's no meetings, funerals, anything that goes on there. So we do spend a lot of times out on the grounds. Opening, closing the gravesite setups, recordable burial, that's always been us. You're not allowed to do any of that stuff from outside. You can't just come in there, dig a hole, and spread ashes in there. That has to be us. Snow removal, we do snow removal throughout the city, including the cemetery. We do South Park, Quemlin down there. So I come in early in the morning, clear that up so nobody can get stuck down in the lower parking lots. We have the trailhead reservations and everything that are in there, so I'm responsible for clearing out that, making sure that's all open. Water tower parking lot, that's a new one this year that's we're gonna have to do, so that's an interesting parking lot. So if you plowed snow before, we'll see what happens there. We're gonna keep the tennis court parking lot open up this year too, as well as everything inside the cemetery. Oops, try that again. In the office, we design, sell, install, and pour concrete for all our headstones. So everything that happens with the headstone, we've probably 95% of the headstones that are in the cemetery has come from us. In the last 15 years, I've really started the design side more of it. That's when you get to meet with the people, find out what they're into, work with their pricing. I've sold stones anywhere from $700 to $15,000 that we have up there. So you get to meet the family, figure out what's going on with them, do all their memorial stuff. We also show, sell, and record the lot sales up there. So we meet a lot of people from the start of this process all the way through until the final memorialization that's going on up there. We've got to know a lot of the people that come in. We've get cookies at Christmas sometimes from the widows. We have sent widowers down to the food bank and the senior center because they've lost their wife. They've never wrote a check before. They've never paid a bill before. They've never cooked dinner before. So when they come back in 2 weeks later to design a headstone, the guy's lost 15 pounds and he hasn't showered. We try and set him up with some stuff that helps him out a little bit. Is it our job? No. Is it our community duty to do it? Yeah, you help those guys out. So we also do all the budget coding, all the neat stuff for the cemetery items that we just discussed here and earlier. We also assist in matters pertaining in the cemetery and dealing with the public. People have genealogy, they're doing records requests now, they're doing just stop in and kick the tires about different stuff, and you have to give those guys the same amount of time as you give the people that have already came in and bought lots. We also assist the other departments. Excavating, we are the second or third backhoe in the city, so a lot of the backhoe work that gets done for the Parks Department. Here, they just did buy a Mini X, so hopefully we can slow down just a little bit on that. But basically, everything that goes on inside the gate is our responsibility. We did have a elderly lady decide to drive through our fence 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago maybe, 3 weeks ago. She jumped our sidewalk through our wrought iron fence. She went through 11 rows of headstones and finally came to a stop in the middle of the cemetery. So we assisted her, calmed her down a little bit and got her out of there. But now it's back into tracking down the owners of the headstones, getting them replaced. We had their wrought iron fence fixed, on and on and on and on. So every little thing that happens pushes us back just a little bit more in the week. So it gets kind of scrambly. We do have 3 employees up there now, myself, 2 other full-time guys. There's a program called ICCFA, which is the International Cemetery Cremation and Funeral Association. So they set the standards and practice for cemeteries. So we ship by guys back there that's in Atlanta once a year. They go through all the industry standards on yard maintenance, meeting with families, veteran services. So we do get some training in there about not just what I think should happen, but industry standards, international industry standards. Stats for 2024, we did 88 services. 15 of those services were weekend services. 2 staff members on every weekend service to get things done safety-wise and just because we need 2 guys. So you got backhoe and our dump truck that has to be ran. Each one of those services takes anywhere between 2 and 5 hours per service. Depending on how many headstones you have to move to get in to dig the grave, how many people show up for the service. Last week we had 350 people for 1 service. Took them about 2 hours to all get in there and all get back out. Can't mow, plow snow, do all that stuff while everybody's there. So it takes up a good part of our day when we do a service, in a weekend service especially, just because everybody comes out for the service on a weekend. I keep doing that. So lot sales been pretty standard, 88. Takes me about an hour to run through lots with everybody. Not a big deal. Help a lot of people out. Headstone sales, we did 106 headstone sales this year, 22 of those being VA-provided government headstones. So we'll help the families order their government headstones, help them get them placed, all that stuff. Each one of those design and meetings, about an hour and a half per headstone in the office to do that. So, and then also we pour the concrete and we do the setting for each one of the stones. So every stone that comes through our office, we're involved from design to ordering to setting, and that way if there's a problem with any of it, it's my responsibility. We get it fixed. There's no middleman in the whole situation. Cuts out a lot of questions for the older family. But it does take about 2 hours per stone. By the time you pour concrete, get it up, each one of the stones, our smallest headstone's 110 pounds. You add 5 bags of 80-pound quickcrete to that. So our smallest stones that we're moving around is 500 plus pounds. Easy. So we did that 106 times this year. Well, actually 128 times with the veteran stones, but that's about as fast as I can talk. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer.
Kevin, the cemetery looks great.
Oh, thank you.
That's obviously, funerals are very difficult for families, and that's just a very welcoming,
It is, and
well-kept
people ask me
facility.
about it, and I've told them I tried to balance the new with the old. So we still have roadways that still have the grass center that goes down them, but we have the Schneidmiller fountain that's all lit up, and we have paved roads at the south. So it's a real fine balancing act between still trying to be that small city cemetery, and we're looking at, 18 acres of land up there with people that we're trying to accommodate. So, and if we have 5, 6 funerals, I've had as many as 7 funerals in 1 week. Well, we can't get things mowed, so we get pushed behind, and it's an interesting balance up there. So
Well, you guys do a good job, so
Thank you.
appreciate it. Any comments?
Thank you for coming and presenting all this.
well, like
This
you
is
said, it's
great
probably the
background.
fastest one you ever had, but
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Next item up tonight's 2024-25 snowplow operations. Always something to look forward to. Snow. And it's gonna happen soon.
There we go. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ross Junkin, Public Works Maintenance Manager. It's that time of year. In fact, I think we're calling for a little bit of snow overnight, so you might wake up to some white stuff. This is intended just to give you an update of where we're at and what we're planning for this winter. I'm going to go over some staffing, where we're at there, our equipment, and the outreach that we've been doing and will continue to do this winter. As far as staffing goes, It says 18 of 20 full-time positions filled. We just lost one this week, so we're down to 17. We have interviews, at least one I'm aware of, so hopefully we can get that back up and make sure we're covered on all our routes for the winter. We've got one street supervisor. In those 20 positions, there's 3 leads in streets, so that includes them. They're in the field working with those guys as well. Myself as manager, 1 department specialist, and 2 of the 4 mechanic positions are filled, and it's been that way for going on a year. So we're having difficulties getting those positions filled. Equipment, we have 8 plow trucks. 6 of those, I have to retract. There's a couple of dedicated de-icer units in there, but there are also de-icer units that fit inside of the dump truck plows. So it's a little, and then there's also the sanders that fit inside dump truck plows. So there's a little bit of shuffling that goes on with those. 5 years ago, dump trucks, we were averaging a 2003 purchase date. Now we're back up to 2016. So we're trying to cycle those back into a more manageable, from a maintenance perspective specifically, to get that equipment up to speed. Thank you, City Council, for help with getting those loaders purchased. We have the loaders. I am waiting on the gated plows.
Always something.
I got an email this morning saying that next week we might get the delivery, first of the deliveries, and shortly after that, the rest of them. So we have, on order, I have 7 plows coming for those. Now we have 4 that we're going to push through the winter, and we'll be okay there, I think. But we're still waiting for the rest of them. And we're also looking into new technology. There's some stuff that's coming out, specifically looking at the weather and trying to help us plan and react to weather events. So we're looking into that and see if we can get some of that purchased and installed for decision making. With regard to outreach, we typically put together a snow brochure each year, and we put it out in social media. There's a couple of different ones. So this is one. It's 2-sided. I didn't include both sides, but it talks about our operations, both plowing and gating, and the tools that we use. And then the other one that we put out on social media is this one. We put it out last year as well. Got some pretty good feedback on it. And it just helps people understand their responsibility when it comes to snow, about hey, you're going to get a berm. It's just going to be reduced by the snow gates and the sidewalk in front of your house. Hey, we need some help with that. Mailboxes are difficult and difficult things to keep plowed out. And this year, we're starting a paint to plow program. So with those new loaders that we just purchased and the new plows that are just going to be arriving here shortly, I've reached out to these 4 elementary schools, and they've gotten on board, and they've been trickling in their art to me, and we're going to have that installed on the face of these plows. So where our city logo is, each of the elementary schools have designed something that will be in that. Those loaders will be in their zone for those elementaries for the most part, so they'll get to see their plow come through their neighborhoods, which hopefully will be some pride for them.
It's a cute idea.
Thanks. And in closing, just some points that our team wanted you guys to know, that we are growing. We are still relatively green on the crew, but they are getting better. Definitely the equipment that's coming in is really helping us get a leg up on that. They know their responsibilities. We're working on it right now. They've been practicing their routes, so they know them. We will go to a day, we're in day shift right now, but when mid-December comes around, we split the shift, or the crew in half, and half of them will go to nights, and the other half will stay on days. They'll do that for about 6 weeks, and then they'll flip-flop so that we can cover the city on both spectrums, because it's much easier to plow a city at night when everybody's in bed and there's hardly any traffic, and we can get a leg up for that morning commute. So just wanted to thank you for your support with us and all the endeavors that Streets does. And I'll take any questions.
Ross, thanks for the presentation. I know you're department has done a very good job in snow removal. And I know you will do this, but bear in mind, you can't make everybody happy. And you're either going to be plowing too early, you're going to be plowing too late, you're going to be plowing too frequently or not frequently enough. And hang in there, because we appreciate the job that you folks do.
Thank you.
Can I say thank you from all of the kids that live in my cul-de-sac that look forward to the big snow hill every year that your team builds for them. So thanks for
Certainly.
that.
I would suggest or point out, there are some of those big snow piles in the cul-de-sacs do get tunnels.
Yeah,
So
no,
we are aware
we've
of those.
discussed that, yeah.
And our drivers know to look for kids, but that is a scary thing.
Yeah.
When you see tunnels through those big piles of snow, and we're still plowing and have to push more snow. We're careful, but it is a scary thing for them.
They're more of a slide kind of
Sure,
group of
sure.
kids, but yeah.
Thanks, Ross.
Understand. Sure, thank you.
Next up is mayor comments, and during my State of the City today, Stephanie in the back, I forgot to thank you for all the work you did with the presentation. So I'm sorry I didn't thank you at the meeting this afternoon, but I'm thanking you now. I really appreciate all the help you gave me, so thank you very much. Also would like to thank Councilman Walker. Josh is going on to what he tells me, and I'm convinced, are bigger and better things. I think it's a great opportunity for Josh, and we will miss you. Thank you for sticking with us through the end of the month.
Absolutely.
You'll be missed, and wish you nothing but the best in the future.
Thank you.
So,
Mr. Mayor, would you like me to give an update on
Please.
what so to try to meet, we had basically what would be an issue with not having a quorum for December 3rd with Councilor Walker leaving us. And so we have moved up the replacement as seat number 6, and we are holding a meeting on November 26, 2024 to select a replacement for Councilor Shove, who resigned from the council seat on November 1st, 2024. We normally like to have the interviews and the discussion at one meeting and the oath of office at the next meeting, but due to the fact that we need to have that person in place before the December 3rd meeting, it is staff's recommendation that we hold that meeting, so we would have the interviews on November 26th for the council seat number 6. We'd have a brief recess after the interviews. We are aware that Councilor Walker and Councilor Westland would be zooming in virtually. Either, I think we'll use Teams as the virtual venue that we use. And after the brief recess, the mayor would make a recommendation for appointment on council seat number 6. Council would then vote on that confirmation, and the individual selected, if there's an individual selected, if we reach that, would take oath of office for council seat number 6, which would allow them to actually sit up at the dais on December 3rd for the meeting. With that, we also know that whoever's selected likely would like to have a ceremonial oath of office so that their family or others could join them on the December 3rd. So we would have a ceremonial allow for a ceremonial oath of office on December 3rd for seat number 6. Also tomorrow, we'll issue a press release on these changes and open up the application process for 1 week. So the application process would allow additional individuals to apply for an open council seat through November 27th at noon. If you applied as an applicant for seat number 6, there's no need to reapply for that. They will be considered for council seat number 2. The replacement of council seat number 2 will be a longer process, allowing the council to have interviews on December 17th. And then the appointment of that seat would actually occur on the January 7th council meeting, and the oath of office would be taken on January 7th for that particular position. Are there any questions that you guys might have for me on this?
So we're going to be talking to the 3 kind of finalists on Tuesday, right?
Yes, and that meeting's going to be at 5 o'clock.
And can you send out the names of those ahead of time so we can get questions prepared?
No, it's a secret. Yes, sorry. And what has happened is we had, I don't know, 8 applicants?
Actually, I had about 13 when I counted earlier, yes.
And I sent them out to, and I mentioned this last time, I sent them out to Councilors Ziegler and Malloy, and asked for their recommendations on the top 3. And I'll get those 3, and then my 3 will visit, and then we'll bring 3 names 3 people forward for interviews, is how
And,
we'll do it.
Rhiannon will send out their application itself, so the council members will receive the application for those 3 members.
So you'll have it all ahead of time. Well, today's Tuesday, hopefully we'll have our name by tomorrow, so it'll be fairly soon. Our names, plural, I'm sorry, by tomorrow. So, okay. Good. How about council comments?
Yeah, I got to check out some of the improvements at Black Bay last week, and I just want to say it looks fantastic. That new covered shelter with the gas grill and the fireplace there, it was amazing. We were over there and trying to see if we could turn it on, but it's still locked up and there's plastic on the grill. So I'm looking forward to when we can use it. And the path that goes down now has the railing and a lot safer for the kids walking down there. And my kids especially love the boulders that were put in there. They love all that. So I just wanted to say thank you. And we're excited about seeing those come online.
Dave Fair, Park and Rec Director. Thank you. I just wanted to let you folks know that we've been told that they're actually going to start putting in some of the pilings starting the 1st of December. So try and get a jump on some of that. So there'll be a little bit of noise, but nothing that the public can get to.
While you're up here, is the gas grill going to be something that anybody can just go turn it on, or will you have to come like get a key from the city first and reserve it?
It'll be on a reservation basis
Okay.
because we will have to turn on the gas and make sure
Yeah.
it turns off at a certain time. And
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Any comments? We do not need executive session tonight,
We do not.
so the next motion is,
Adjourn?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned, thank you.